Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. This one should be pretty easy, pretty fun, tastes really good. And I always try to do a little bit of a twist on every recipe we do. But first, I wanted to start by talking about the books. Maybe I should do my intro that I always do, which is I'm Maria Martone. I'm with Urban Seeds. I'm here with Evansville Vanderburgh Public Library. Kelly and Erica are here with us. So they're always here helping us in the background take our video, and we're here at Trinity United Methodist Church, the kitchen we use every time we do this program. So today we're going to make an apple crisp with a twist. We've got a little variety of apples today for you guys to kind of look over, and we'll talk about a little bit. And then we did kind of reference two different books today. I should have the page right here. So I was really inspired by the recipe in this book. And page 54 is actually a tarte aux pommes, which is a French dish. And I was really inspired by the cream filling that was in this dish and decided to kind of transform that into a crisp and make it a little bit easier for you all to do by yourself. Although we are going to need a little bit of help from a parent or guardian to peel the apples. So make sure you're around for that first step to peel the apples, or you can go ahead and get that done if there's a parent or guardian around. That will be a little bit tough. And I am going to use a peeler, but we did not provide one. I think it would also be fine if you left the peels on, if that's your choice. But that will definitely need a little bit of help with that. So if you want to make it with the full crust, you can check out page 54, and it'll be a very similar flavor with the apples, but with a full pie crust. So today we're going to do more of that crumble.
I'm gonna use a palm peeler, if that's okay.
Okay, that's awesome. That's great that you have one of those. And then we also referenced pizza pickles and apple pie. Once again, we're not doing.
I've read
Okay,
that book cover to cover
you did. It's pretty funny. I like the illustrations a lot.
multiple
Um,
times.
oh, awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, and the apple part is right at the back. Can anyone tell me one thing they learned if they read that part?
Adam's raising his hand.
Adeline?
I loved how they talked about how it took the colonists a little bit to learn how to grow apples because they didn't realize that they needed bees to do the pollination.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I thought there was really great information in here, just about how apples traveled to America. So that's not a lot of history that we know. We kind of learned Johnny Appleseed growing up, but not necessarily how they got here in a huge way. Anything else? I know that Kelly included some questions about grafting, which they also talk about. But really, today we're going to talk a little bit about different varieties of apples. There's a lot available locally to the Evansville area. Today we're using some apples from Evansville Countryside Orchard, and then also Farview Orchard, which is in Mount Vernon. So the red ones are from Farview, and those are called Jonathan apples. And then they look very similar, and they look a little rougher than normal, but these are the one's a Gold Rush and one's a Golden Delicious. And according to the lady who owns the orchard, kind of these brown striations you see on the outside of the apple, there's nothing wrong with them. Apparently it happens because of rain. But she's always kind of advised me that there's nothing wrong with the taste or the flavor of the apple. It has to do with kind of the weather patterns and how it affects the apple peel. But especially when you're peeling apples, these apples are perfectly fine to use. They may not be as friendly as a snack when you see the outside, but they taste just fine. Yes, Adeline?
I actually went to Countryside Orchard a couple weeks ago, and we went with the owner and learned about the apples that they grow there.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Has anyone else, can you raise your hand if you've been able to visit an apple orchard this year? Or have you ever visited an apple orchard? Okay, we got hands there. Well, honestly, it's still the perfect time to visit. So that's kind of also why I wanted to highlight apples today. There's still a few orchards that it's a great time because a lot of them have apples, and they also have pumpkin patches and a lot of fun activities right now. So the few that I know of are Evansville Countryside Orchard, which is up, north kind of near the airport. The one in Mount Vernon, Farview. Reed's Orchard in Owensboro is really fun. They have these fun apple cider slushies. And then what's the other one we went to? Lakeview Orchard. So those are all great options kind of within an hour of Evansville, if you are interested in visiting one this year. But we're going to jump right into the recipe. This recipe has a lot of combining of ingredients, and then I do want to make sure that we're measuring everything, especially because some of these ingredients you kind of pull from your ingredients twice, which just means the flour we use in 2 parts of the recipe. So make sure on certain ingredients that you're not just dumping them in. I'll let you know if you can just dump an ingredient in because it's fully pre-measured for you. So I think we're gonna start by preheating your oven. I already have mine preheated at 375. And let's see. It does say to grease your baking dish first. I'm gonna get my hands messy a few times. You guys might need to take a break and wash your hands every once in a while. I'm gonna use my hands when I feel like it's the best tool. But you're always welcome to use like a spoon or something else. So I'm just gonna take a little piece of my butter. If you have extra butter in your house, you can use that. But it's okay if you kind of take a small amount off the butter we gave you too. And my butter looks a little different. It's just in a block. And I'm just gonna take that and take the small amount and kind of like start wiping the outside of my glass baking dish. And I know there's other parts where we're gonna get our hands dirty too, but really you only just need a thin layer. There's a lot of, this is not really a recipe that sticks very hard to the glass dish or anything like that. So that's why we're not using parchment paper. But you can kind of just work around your little piece of butter and make a really thin layer. If your parent or guardian prefers like a baking spray, that's fine too. I just use butter for this kind of recipe because more butter with apples never tastes bad. So that should be pretty good. I kind of work it up halfway through the side, and then a thin layer on the bottom. I'll use my hands a lot today, but it's kind of a fun one where you can do that. And like I said, it's kind of the best tool for some of these things. Other people might use a paper towel to rub the butter around. They don't want to get their hands dirty. But as you can see, there's kind of like, you can see kind of that thin layer of butter all over and on the sides. All right, I'm gonna have my dirty napkin. It's only gonna get dirtier. All right. Then we're gonna introduce a little bit of a new ingredient today called mascarpone. A lot of people have trouble saying it. Sometimes I do. I think in some, cooking videos or other things, people do the hard like mascarpone or mascarpone. I don't know the exact way to say it, but it is an ingredient that I've recently become familiar with. So I was excited to kind of see this in the recipe. To me, the texture is like cream cheese, but not with the kind of, doesn't have the tang of cream cheese. So we're going to start by opening that up and we're going to use the whole container. So you can open it up. You're also welcome to try it on its own. It has a very mild flavor. And we'll add a little sugar and not seasoning, but we'll add some vanilla extract to it. But it's really good. I often eat it on toast with jam. Or I've also done, I don't know if anyone has ever seen those kind of stuffed dates where you might have, stuffed dates before. So I put this in there and usually put some pistachios on my dates and it's a little snack. So I'm gonna take all of this out and put it in my small bowl. I've done it in this bowl a few times. You're always welcome to use bigger bowls for any parts of the recipe, but everything should fit in here pretty nicely. So just work on getting all of that mascarpone out. You're gonna need the whole container. And like I said, you're welcome to try a little bit. So many voices today. All right, I think I've almost got it all. Let's see. And then I hope everyone's egg made it safely. I'm always really worried about transporting the egg. This time I tried a cup method. Sometimes we give you partial egg cartons. But you can go ahead whichever way you like to crack it. I always crack it down here with a nice little crack in the middle, and then just open it up right in there. Just one egg goes in there. Did anyone try the mascarpone by itself and want to share what they think? Not a fan. Okay.
I'm not a big fan at all.
Not a big fan. Do you like cream cheese or not that either?
I like
You do like
cream cheese. I like cream.
okay.
It's okay.
I like
think you'll
cream
like
cheese.
it season. It's kind of like I said, it doesn't have a really strong flavor. But it's really good when you add things to it. So like I said, I love it with like I kind of put a thin layer on my toast and then I'll put like raspberry jam on top and it's pretty good. All right.
Pasta too. Makes
Yeah.
Pasta creamy.
Yeah, it's really a nice way to add a lot of creaminess and then it kind of takes on whatever flavors you add to it. So then we're gonna go over to our sugar, and this is one of those ingredients that you'll use in two places. So we will need to measure it. My measuring spoons just look a little different because I can't find the ones that I got you guys, but I'm gonna use my quarter cup. So you're just gonna add a quarter cup of sugar from your bag. And you will have more sugar than you need, or you should have more sugar than you need for the recipe today. And I'm just gonna level off that sugar in my bag and make sure you have a pretty, even measurement here. And just pour that right in. And then same thing with the flour, you're gonna be using your flour in two places. And we'll get there next. I'll wait to see if everyone's got those items in there. So we'll move on to the flour. And we're gonna do 3 tablespoons. So you gotta use kind of your biggest, the biggest one of your measuring spoons with the TBSP on it. So you're gonna need 3 of those. And you can level those off as well. This recipe is pretty forgiving, so it's okay if it's a little over, a little under, but you got to do 3 of those with leveled tops. 1, 2, and this will be my last one. 3. And then we've got 2 more things to add to this. I'm gonna get my little container of vanilla extract and then salt, which we did not provide this time, and it's okay if it's not kosher salt. I think I'm using this Morton sea salt today. And same thing, you have more vanilla than you need, but I did provide you a little bit extra. So it'd be good to measure this out too. And you're gonna use your half teaspoon. So it's a pretty small amount. You should have your 1/2 TSP. And I'm gonna measure right over just because it's okay if it goes a little bit over. I'm gonna do my vanilla extract first. Like I said, I have still a little bit left. And then you do your salt first. That might have made a little bit more sense, but that's okay. Then you're gonna do your half teaspoon of salt. Sometimes it's better to do the salt not over the bowl. I've made that mistake a few times. Like right now. I'll have to wipe off my cutting board before I do my apples. But I've got my half teaspoon of salt. And now we'll wait for some thumbs up that you have all of those ingredients before moving forward. We got a thumb, we got some thumbs. the last ingredient, and this is optional because I know we've talked about zesting before. I have a zester. Sometimes you have one on a, what's that word? Like a grater. You can have one side that might do some zesting for you, with the smaller holes on a grater. So I'm just gonna do a little bit of lemon zest in this. I think it really brightens the flavor and once again kind of helps season or provide flavoring to the mascarpone. So I'm gonna do. I provided a whole lemon because I definitely think it's easier to zest a whole lemon than a half. But the recipe calls for half of a zested lemon. So if you're not doing that part, that's okay. We can still do the juice later in the recipe. But I'm going to kind of work on that zest a little bit. And with zesting, you usually just want to get it down to where it starts to become white and then move on to a different area. You really want to only get the zest from the very yellow part of the lemon. As you get closer to the lemon, the white part, it gets a little bit more bitter. I kind of usually put some extra lemon zest because I like it. But that's probably good. So I think I'm done with that. I see there's lots of zesting going on, so I will hold for a second. Smells pretty good. I love the smell of lemon zest. And then we've got everything in the bowl. Let me check really quick. We have our mascarpone, our egg, a half cup of sugar, 3 tablespoons flour, a pinch of salt, some vanilla extract, and then our lemon zest. And we're just gonna work to combine that. So I kind of just start breaking up that egg, and start blending it all together. Kind of work your spoon back and forth so that you're not going out of the bowl. Like I said, sometimes it's easier to use a bigger bowl, but it's also good practice to contain all your ingredients in a bowl. So just keep working that in. To me, it almost starts to smell like vanilla ice cream. And usually once you add some vanilla, some vanilla to mascarpone, it does start to resemble kind of an ice cream flavor to me. And that's kind of, I wouldn't say it's going to taste like ice cream, but that's kind of the flavor we're going for on the bottom of this apple crisp is like almost like a custard flavor. So yeah, once you have most of it worked in, you can do some bigger swirls and really just get it all combined. All right.
Is it okay if we try a bit of it?
Yeah, it does have raw eggs, so some people are don't believe you should try things with raw eggs, but really I usually like a little taste is nothing to worry about. But I think it tastes really good. I've definitely tried it.
If we're doing like a double recipe, will it all fit in one 9x13?
A double recipe.
Like I have 2 kids working on their own. Will it all fit in one 9x13 or should I do 2 of the 11x8s?
I would probably do 2. I haven't tried this recipe in a 9x13. I think if you spread it out, it'll just kind of make your custard layers smaller or bigger, depending on the size. And same with the apples, it kind of just impacts the level and the thickness, but I don't think it'll have any issue cooking in the 45 minutes. So that's more your call.
I just didn't overflow if I stick both of them in one pan.
Yeah, I definitely think it'll be like a lot for just the same pan we're using today. But if you use like a 9x13, I don't think you would overflow because it's not really high in this single pan.
Okay.
It'll kind of go halfway.
All right, I'll put them all in one pan.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. Like I've done one with like a bit of a thicker apple layer. Same with the custard, everything should cook just fine. If anything, you'll just have kind of a nice thicker custard layer. That will taste good. So we've got all that combined. We're gonna set it aside and we're gonna assemble our bake a little bit later. But if that looks all good and combined, you can set that aside and we'll start working on our apples. Since that will kind of take a little while. And like I said, this is kind of the part where you might need a parent or guardian help to peel. We've got 4 apples. I'm not going to try to do any fancy peeling today as far as making rings. That just takes too long to me. So I'm just going to start working at it. I usually keep my fingers on the top and bottom. Like I said, this is probably where you can ask for help unless you've done something like this before. And I just start to work the top layer and then I'll kind of rotate my hand and work the bottom. So I'm hoping, I see some of you already got help with your apples.
Do you have to peel them? Because I don't
I
have.
don't, you definitely don't have to. You know, when I don't have a peeler, I either, you know, try to cut off the peel, but I think that that'd probably be more difficult. And I think without the peel, I think the peel on would be completely fine. Like I said, these aren't the most, maybe the best looking apple. So that's why I was more focused on peeling, but I actually plan to try it without peeling as well. So yeah, I don't think it'll change the flavors at all. Peels are really more about texture, and people not wanting that texture because sometimes they can get a little stringy. Same with our cut today. We're gonna try to cut them in slices, the apples, but this recipe I think would be fine if you cut it in chunks as well, and that might be easier for some of you. It's really flexible, and like I said, kind of as you're baking it, you'll be able to kind of see if everything's done and cooked down. So like I said, I'm kind of working at the top and going all the way around. And then I usually kind of flip it over and do the same thing on the bottom and kind of meet in the middle. And I don't really worry about my little peel at the top. And I know you might not be going as fast as me, but that's okay. I will wait until you are all ready to go. I'm seeing these apple eyes every time I look up.
Yeah, we cheated.
Oh, we've got some great apple peels over there too. I definitely don't have one of those fancy apple peelers yet. Maybe one day. And then if there's any like little, you know, sometimes there's just like little brown spots right under the skin, I'll just peel that off too or cut it off. I don't think it really impacts flavor. And then on to my last apple. As you can see, I'm just working my way around each one. I find this faster than trying to make a fancy peel. But apples can be slick too. You can see that every once in a while my peeler kind of slips. So you do have to be careful. I know it's hard not to snack on them once they're peeled too. Or you could eat a few of your peels if you have them. Nothing wrong with that. All right, I've got my 4 done. Gonna find a plate to put my peels on. I'd clear up your area if you peeled right on your cutting mat. And then we're going to go into the slicing. Like I said, if you want to do all your apples in chunks, you can. It'll just create a little bit different texture. But it may be hard to cut them in slices. And I think in the recipe it says very thin slices. But really, if you have slices of kind of an equal, as long as they're equal, you just kind of keep cooking down your crisp until you can tell the apples are done. So I never usually use an apple core. And the way they describe it is kind of just doing your first cut on the side all the way down. And just like we always talk about, it's about creating flat surfaces with the food that you're cooking with. So You can do that side flat down and then just kind of do one cut all the way around to create 4 flat areas. So as you can see, I kind of went all the way around the apple, and now I'm going to have all my flat pieces. And then you've got your core right here. So like I said, you can do kind of this one big cut. And like I said, they're slippery, so got to make sure they're in a good spot to cut. And it's always easier once you've got your first flat side. Or you can lay it down after that first cut. Using a bigger knife. And I see a lot of help happening, which is okay today. I knew the apple part may be a little challenging. Just getting some of the core out of these other pieces. So like here, I cut a little bit of the core in the apple, and I'll just kind of do a diagonal cut to get that off. I'm going to cut all my apples down into these pieces before I do the slices. But if you're ahead of me or behind me, that's okay. So I'm going to do my first cut down, then put it down, do my next cut. This knife is kind of as big as the apple, so it's a little harder. And then, let's see. Got one more. It's good to learn this just in case you always want to make yourself some apple slices for a snack. Like I said, I'm just taking out the core from a few pieces, and I think all of mine are ready to do my slices. So I'm going to go back in and start with one of these and just start to cut them kind of, I think they would say this is like an 1/8 of an inch. That's always hard for me to visualize. I do them about like this thickness. Once again, kind of hard to see. This is smaller than I do for like, if I'm doing an apple slice for a snack. But the real goal is just making them all a similar size and just working your way across. And they should just kind of be able to just have very kind of similar slices. And I know this may take a while if you're trying to get your practice in. So I just work my way across each apple and do very controlled cuts.
We cut the ring.
And what did you ask? You cut them in rings?
Yeah, can we cut the rings?
Yeah, you could cut those in half, and I think those would work just fine, or you can cut them in quarters. I think that would work well too. So that means just you can either cut them in half or cut them 4 times, and those look like a really nice thickness to use. So, and I kind of like glide my knife across as I work through the slices, so it's kind of a nice smooth movement. Always keeping my fingers to the end or removing them when you get very close to the end of the apple. Nobody wants to get sliced today. I'm going to try to go a little slower than I normally do. This is kind of what you need to do for a lot of different apple desserts. Apple pie usually gets in these small slices. I think I've got some seeds stuck in this one. Gotta cut that up a little bit more. I knew that this would kind of be the longer part of the recipe. And that's always the challenge with working fresh food. It just takes a little bit more time to prepare, but it tastes really good. And I'm glad we could provide you these local apples today. All right, I'm about halfway through. I don't like to talk too much while you guys while you're cutting alongside me. And if you need more space, I'm going to use my larger bowl for the apples. So if you need more space on your cutting board, you can start putting them in a bowl. I see some apple snacking happening. Yeah.
Sure, they have.
My favorite time to snack is coming up really quickly. It's once we put some of the sugar and the cinnamon on the apples. I could eat those all day. Alrighty. We were gonna do 5 or 6 apples. I'm happy we did 4. All right, my last little apple. What's also interesting when you start to bake with apples is also just being mindful of the recommendations of the type of apples. Usually in baked goods, you use more of the tart apples. And that's why we included those green ones. The red ones definitely have more, just definitely a sweeter taste. But when you're adding sugar usually to baked goods, you usually use tart apples to kind of balance it out. All right, I've made it to my last slice. They're looking all nice. I don't know if this camera's even on today. It is. Great. All my slices are done. I see a lot more slicing happening. And then I'll have a few things to add to the apples before moving to the last part. If you haven't taken out your butter yet, this would be a good time. You still want it cold or cool, but it'd be a good time to take it out now because we're going to work it into our oats pretty soon. If there's anyone that's done, does anyone want to tell me about their favorite type of apple? Want to turn their
Mine's a gala apple.
a gala apple? Awesome. What do you like about it?
I liked how tiny it is and how sweet it is. It's like a quick snack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, apple sizes are kind of funny. There's big and small. I do like tart apples.
Single apple.
What kind?
Every single one.
Every single one. I agree. I think apples are fun. I like the sweet ones. I used to really like just Granny Smith.
Yeah. My little brother here says he likes the red apples. I prefer Granny Smith.
Granny Smith, the tart ones. What about you, Ian?
I like the green one we just had.
The green ones we just made.
The green ones, yeah. The Gold Rush and Golden Delicious are really nice. We use them a lot in our baking the last few weeks. I tried all types of baked apple dishes, like an apple fritter cake. What else did I make? We tried an apple tahini tart and have just been cooking up a lot of things with apples in our kitchen here at Urban Seeds.
I like pear apples.
What are those?
I like pears that are hard like apples, but still taste like pears and apples.
Interesting.
I
Yeah,
like
there are
pear
some
apples too.
also get local pears, but they're a little bit more rare. I don't think I've had a pear apple before. It's cool to learn about some of the new apples that they're creating, and a lot of that's happening through the grafting that was mentioned in the book. So if you've been to the store recently, more of the ones I've seen, they're kind of branded, if that makes sense. It's like the Cosmic Crisp apple has been at the grocery store and is kind of a newer apple that they came out with. So it's always very interesting to see the apple trends that are going on. But it's definitely apple season across the United States. So I see apples on sale at the store right now. So it's definitely the time to experiment with new recipes. Great time of year for that. And there's quite a variety locally too. It's nice to see like Reed's has Macintosh. They have they do have, I think, a version of Honeycrisp, or maybe Pink Ladies. I just saw. I do like Pink Ladies. They're up there for me too, as a favorite apple. All right, we're gonna finish up our apples now. We're going to, because we have our cutting mat still out, we'll work on that lemon juice. So I'm gonna cut my lemon in half, just right down the middle, keep my hands on each side for safety. And then you just need a half, juice of half a lemon. I'm just gonna use my hands as a little strainer for the seeds. And then you just kind of squeeze. I know many of you have a juicer to use, but I kind of just juice through my hand. It can be hard, but this is gonna, like I said, brighten the flavor. When you have your apples sitting out for a while, it also helps them not brown. So that's also just a tip that you see where you don't taste it a ton later, depending on what you're making. But you definitely taste the lemon in this recipe between the lemon zest in the mascarpone and then the lemon juice on the apples. So I've definitely collected quite a few seeds, and you really only need half the lemon. Like I said, we gave you a whole one, but you can use that to make something else. I think I got most of my juice out. You don't have to get too crazy about it. Make sure you don't get any seeds in there. Got my seeds right here. And I'm going to keep wiping my hands. If you need to wash your hands, that's fine. And then we've got 2 more ingredients, I think, to add to this. We're going to go to our cinnamon, which you guys have in a little packet. I did not measure mine out for myself today, so I'm going to get it right out of the container. I need, oh, I think you have enough cinnamon to use it twice. So like I said, I would measure out of your cinnamon, because you're going to put a little bit into the crumble topping as well. I realized I'm getting a whole teaspoon of cinnamon in the apple slices. So I'm going to go in my container and get a big giant teaspoon, 1 TSP, and level that off. And then just sprinkle it over my apples. And then I'm going to go back to my sugar and get my 3 tablespoons out. Smells good in here. All right, so then I'm going to go back to my sugar and do my 3 tablespoons out of there. Just sprinkle it over. I am going to also combine this with my hands in a second. One, two, three. So you should have just enough with a little bit extra, and that's okay. I'm going to leave the rest of that out. We just always like to give you a little bit extra while you're measuring multiple things from one bag. So you've got your cinnamon, your sugar, your lemon juice inside, and I'm going to go right in with my hands. I think those are the best tools for this. But if you want to go in with a spoon, that's okay too. And I'm just going to get all that mixed up and well incorporated. And you definitely want to see cinnamon start to coat every apple in there. And like I said, I still have like little bits of my skin on my apples too, but you definitely won't notice it later. And they'll get a really nice little sugary coating. These are the apples I could eat. Not hard to eat apples with sugar on them, but it tastes really good. Especially with the lemon, there's something about it. All right, those are looking good. So kind of mixed all that up. You'll see there's kind of somewhat of an even coating on there. I'm just going to keep wiping my hands on this rag instead of washing them, but usually I would be washing them. Instead, I'm going to wash this rag. Did anyone try one of these sugary apples? Don't eat too many, because then you won't have any for your dish, but I'm going to eat one really quick. They're very cinnamony, but I think that's why I like them. All right, I see some munching going on. All right, we're getting close to our last kind of layer of ingredients here. Let me tidy up for a second.
Good.
The cinnamon on the apples, I just washed my hands and it felt like I had sand on my hands.
Yeah, it does have that sandy texture. And that's kind of a common, it's a common description when you're baking, that sandy texture. There's a few in, you'll kind of also create that in our next step. And it's similar to when this next part of the recipe is a kind of similar to when we made the scones. We're gonna kind of work our butter into the other ingredients. I know, Ian, you weren't able to join us for scones, but maybe we can send you the recipe and you can try them out because it was really fun. We made blueberry scones, and like I said, we kind of worked that butter in. So my butter is just a little block. I'm using a little bit of a different butter today. But if you get out your butter stick, and then I'm going to collect my other ingredients really quick and make sure I have them all. So I've got my butter stick. I've got my oats, my brown sugar. What else do we need? The rest of our cinnamon and salt. Some salt again. I think that's it. Oh, and my flour. We got it all here. I've got multiples. And then we're gonna kind of break up. I think we did this for the scones too. You know, once again, mine's in a square, but your rectangle, I would just kind of break into multiple pieces. So I'm gonna kind of just do some cuts. So I can make little rectangles of butter, just with like a butter knife. So I kind of make some diagonal cuts and then
Do we use
make some.
all of the butter?
Yes, you do. Yes, you use the whole stick of butter today. Pretty common in a crisp. I usually do see them with a whole stick for your kind of crisp topping. Is apple crisp something you guys make at home often? Or not really? Or maybe a different type of apple dessert?
No.
No, not a crisp. Do you make any other apple desserts?
I make apple crisp sometimes.
Don't apples. We made a cinnamon roll stuff.
Apple pie,
cinnamon roll stuffed apple.
stuffed apples?
Yeah.
It was cinnamon roll.
Cinnamon
Yeah.
roll.
Cinnamon apples. And stuffed apples I haven't made in a long time, but those always look good where you keep the apple whole and then maybe you put some crumble inside or on top. And it kind of keeps the whole apple and kind of cooks it down.
I don't really make apple desserts.
No apple desserts? I know, I usually use it just for snacking. And then I think, was that only 2 years ago now? That we made 2 years ago now. Wow, we made an applesauce cake and that was pretty good. And we used local applesauce and then kind of that one kind of had like a crispy, the little brown sugar, or like it was just a little sugar top. Yeah, a little sugar topping, and that was really good. And if you guys ever want any of those old book and cook recipes, you can reach out to us. But that one I do remember often, and I should make again this year. All right, so we've got our butter chunks, and we're gonna just combine everything together. So we'll actually get the dry ingredients in the bowl first. This is one of the only things you don't have to measure today. We measured out 1 cup of oats for you. So you can pop that in there first into another bowl. I know it's a little bowl heavy today. And then sugar, trying to remember. I think you can measure that out anyway. I think we only gave you a 1/2 cup, but if you can easily kind of figure out, let's see where we landed. And like I said, this one's okay if you do have a little extra. I'm gonna just see how well our volunteers measured out our 1/2 cup of brown sugar into my 1/2 cup. Maybe a little extra, but usually they also in recipes recommend you pack the brown sugar. So I think they were pretty spot on. They were doing it loose. They weren't going through and packing it for everybody. So it's okay if you're a little short and it's okay if you're a little over. Unless you're trying to limit your brown sugar. All right, and then we're gonna go back into our cinnamon. Like I said, you guys have a little pouch. I am just pulling from the container. So I'm gonna do a half teaspoon of cinnamon, your 1/2 TSP. I'm gonna get that right out of there. This was the same cinnamon we gave you guys. Let's see. And then another half teaspoon of salt. And salt is really important in baking. It just helps balance out the flavors and doesn't give you only sweetness. And it often makes the sweetness taste a little bit like better and richer. So we've got our brown sugar, our oats, I think I skipped one. Our flour is the last thing. So the flour, I think you also need a 1/2 cup. It seems like it's very close in size again to what we'll need. I'm going to measure it out into my 1/2 cup and see how we do. Sometimes it can be tricky getting it out of the bag. Same thing. It's okay if you do a little bit more or less. Some crumbles have more flour, and then they kind of cover bake your dessert in a different way. I have a little bit left of my flour, but I'm going to do about my 1/2 cup in there. And I think that should be everything. I'm going to check one more time. We've got the oats. We have the 1/2 cup flour, 1/2 cup brown sugar, 1/2 teaspoon cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon salt.
The butter.
Oh yeah, the butter's coming next. Thank you. So like I said, I'm going to keep using my hands today. I'm going to first kind of just combine my dry ingredients really quick. And I'm just going to get them dirty now because I'm going to add the butter in a second. So I just combined everything so that it's pretty even. And so that once you put the butter in, nothing gets missed. You can definitely use a spoon. And then once you have everything combined, you're just going to slide your little butter chunks right in there. And then I think if you remember from the scones, you're just going to have to start kind of working it together. And you'll start to get those oats, they're going to cling to the butter. And then you can go and kind of take little chunks and kind of smash them a little with your hands and keep just trying to combine that butter into your dry ingredients. And this part takes a little bit just to get your butter going, depending on how cold it is. You want it cold so that it doesn't just turn into one big glob. But it does take a little bit of work, and it's easy to kind of just pick up some pieces, kind of like work it through. You kind of want to work your butter down until it's all in little pea size shapes. So it becomes a little bit sandier, more of a sand texture. But I'll show you once I get to that point of, you can also have a little bit of a mix of your chunks of crumble as well. So this is kind of the thing, you just gotta kind of keep working it together. I kind of like smash it out my fingers.
Do they put all the butter in?
Yes. All right. 10 minutes. I thought this one was gonna be quick. Those apples, yeah, you're right. That did take a while. That's all right. I don't like when you guys don't get to eat it with me, but I can't wait to hear what you think about this recipe later. I've definitely had apple crisp before, but I've never had it with kind of like a creamy component, like this mascarpone. And I don't know if I'll make it a different way going forward. I think I might have to keep it. Mascarpone, I feel like it used to be a little bit harder to find in the grocery store, but it is a little bit easier to find now. So I actually bought everyone's mascarpone at Aldi, and that's where it had the lowest price. So I highly recommend getting it there if you like it. They do have it at most stores. Sometimes it's in like more of the specialty cheese area instead of the dairy section. but I only really knew about that ingredient from tiramisu. I've never made tiramisu, but I did learn to like it. I didn't like it as much as a kid, but now I love like those coffee flavors and the chocolate. All right, I'm still working this. Let me see if I can show you kind of where I'm at. I'm getting close to the texture I want. As you can see, your hands kind of start melting the butter too. So once you kind of start to see these little clusters form, you're getting really close. I know it's a lot of handwork today. I think this part is probably the only part that's a little bit harder to do with a spoon. And you might have some big chunks. Oops, one went overboard. Trying to use this small bowl, but I probably could have used a bigger one. All right, mine's looking pretty good. And then yes, you'll have, I might have to wash my hands after this one. We'll see. All right, we're getting there. All right. I don't want to make mine into one big glob, so that's kind of why I'm also breaking it up a little bit before we spread it on there in a second. So if you ended up getting some bigger chunks, try to kind of break them up. A little bit different. I like kind of all different size chunks. It's a little bit different than cobbler, where you kind of put, I feel like you kind of put it all across the top and it's like one big connected flour crust. This one should be a little bit more crumbly. All right, I'm gonna try to get all this butter and sugar off my hands and hopefully wipe it all on this towel. I think there's some finger licking happening. I'm not gonna do that on camera. I would do it at home. No, I'm good. It's fine. We just need to assemble now. All right. This is the fun part. And then you bake and then you eat in like 45 minutes. I know it's going to be hard to wait. Okay. So if you want, I'm going to just kind of move my little station over, maybe gracefully. Okay. And then we're going to get to the assembly of our dish. You know, I think there's so many ways you could approach this dish after today. I think some people would probably just combine the mascarpone with the apples and it'd be all together. We're going to do the layers today because I think that it tastes really good. So first we're going to start with our mascarpone mixture. And we're just going to pour that all into the bottom of our baking dish that has the butter on it. Not really doing the right side for pictures. It's okay if you put it all in one spot. Because then we're gonna I'm just gonna do it with my spoon. You can do it with a spatula. You do want to get every little bit out of here. And then I'm just gonna create a little bit of a layer on the bottom. So I work it all the way around my pan and just try to get somewhat of an even layer. It'll move around a bit because you're gonna put the apples right on top. And I was a little nervous to try this because the original recipe has the pie crust on the bottom. And I wasn't sure how the mascarpone and the cream would react to not having a bottom crust, but it turns out really nicely. Nothing to worry about. Alrighty. That looks pretty good. Now, I'm still using hands. Now we're gonna add our apples in. Nothing really too much to stress about here either. You can definitely be more particular about how you lay the apples, but I kind of just go in and I am a little careful about how I place them. So I'll kind of take a clump and start on each part and then kind of just spread them out. So I'll do like a little cluster here and then just start to kind of spread them out to make sure there's like somewhat of an even layer. So like a little bunch kind of every few inches. It's not a big deal if some of your apples start mixing with the mascarpone. But it's also nice to have a little bit of a defined layer too. So I'm gonna have, all right. Before I get done, I'm gonna ask Kelly if she can go find us a few things to taste today. So I forgot all about that. I don't love tasting in front of you guys, but I do want you to see the final product before we wrap up. All right, so I've got all my apples just kind of evenly spaced. Like I said, you don't need to worry about, does it cover every little spot? They'll spread out a little bit and they'll cook down. And then the last step is just going to be adding that crumble on top. So I'm going to wait. I think there's still some apple assembly going. So then I just go in with my crumb and I kind of start crumbling it right on in little chunks. Just to get that first even layer. Like I said, there's nothing too scientific about this part or particular or exact. It's supposed to look a little rustic. It's not really something that you slice out of in a big way, you kind of more scoop out when you cook it. So I'm just kind of covering that whole top layer with my butter and apple, well, my butter and oat mixture, I mean. And that's looking pretty good. This will also spread out, so it's okay if you don't have, a piece covering every little part of the top. You'll see 1 second, and I'll show you my finished one. All right. Let's see where everyone's at. So that's kind of what mine looks like before it heads to bake. I'm sure you guys are just seeing my mess over here for most of the episode, but that's what it'll look like. And that's kind of that cream layer, the apples and the crumb. And then you're going to put that in for about 45 minutes. If you like yours not as brown, you can take it out a little bit earlier. I like mine very brown and crispy. I love when all the oats have become all caramelized and the butter is all crunchy and, no, not the butter. I guess the oats are all crunchy and good. So once you're done, you'll put that in the oven for 45 minutes. And then it'll come out looking all lovely like this. I don't know if this is hot anymore. I don't think so. We made it right before we started recording. So this is what it'll look like when it's all done. You still have that layer of apple curd, or that layer of mascarpone. It's pretty visible, but then it looks all roasty toasty, and it smells really good. No. Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna have Erica, I think, is gonna come try with me today. She brought a kit home last night because she wanted to make the dish too. So we're gonna take a little layer out of that, and I don't know if you can see my layers that well. It's like a nice crispy corner there. Still warm. And then we're just gonna have a little snack to start the day. And I'll show you just one more time. Erica can start snacking if she wants. I'll show you one more time, just like what the little custard layer ends up looking like. Can you see that, Kelly? Yeah. So it's kind of all baked down and it turns into like a really nice light golden, like yellow color. But I really do think it adds a lot to the flavor. So let me get this out of here. All right. I think we're almost at our time, but I'm going to take one bite of I want every little bit bite. It's still very warm.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's great.
I'll eat the rest of the can.
Well, it's really good. I'm excited for you all to try it. Like I said, it's very traditional in flavor, but then you get that little custardy bit, and I just don't know if I'll be able to have it without that anymore. I think it would still be good with ice cream, I'm not gonna lie. But it is really good on its own, especially because it already has a little bit of that creamy dairy flavor. So I just want to thank you all so much. I know we're right at time. I know that everyone's looked really good because I could see you all working on it. Does anyone have any questions before I go? No, thank you so much. And I'm actually going to visit an orchard today. So I definitely recommend trying that out this weekend if you have time. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you for our last one in November. And we are going to we are going to feature our last book, The Takeout. So if you haven't read that yet, now you're on a deadline. Okay. Thank you guys.